Hello, my name is Elliot Shepard. I'm a Associate Product Manager for Weiler Abrasives. Today we have Josh Welton. Came in for a factory tour. We started talking about some abrasives that we're using here, and we decided to have a nice interview today.
Right on.
So Josh, you mind telling the folks a little bit about yourself?
My name's Josh. I own Brown Dog Welding, which is it's a fabrication shop out of Detroit. Mostly I work through my shop on sculptures and small architectural fabrication type things. I also work for General Dynamics Land Systems in their prototype shop doing military prototype vehicle work. I started at Chrysler in 2002 as a millwright apprentice, went through the apprenticeship. I also do some writing now. I write for Dodge Garage, I write for The Fabricator and the Welder magazine.
Awesome. So just kind of starting off, I know we had a factory tour yesterday. What'd you think of it?
I loved it. I'm a factory rat. I've been in and out of factories since I was 18, and just especially American manufacturing, the feeling you get when you walk in and you see all just the smell of metal and machines running, the sound of machines running, and seeing everyone doing their job and enjoying being in here doing what they're doing, and the sheer scope of all the different ways that things are made is just, It's awesome to see kind of the behind the scenes on how things are built.
Awesome, man. So kind of starting off with the first interview questions, what got you into fabricating?
It was becoming an apprentice at Chrysler. The welding was the part of the job that I fell in love with. I've told this story before, but during our training, health and safety training at the tech center, or the Chrysler Training Center, we weren't supposed to weld yet, but one of the instructors took us out back, fired up a Miller Bobcat, and gave us some 60-10 rod, and was like, hey, run a couple of beads. So I struck my very first arc ever, and I'm running this bead, and I'm like, this is what I want to do, this is amazing. And somebody's like, Josh, you're on fire, and I'm like, yeah, I know, this is awesome. They're like, no, literally, you're on fire, and my pants were on fire. And so that was kind of like, I knew that's what I wanted to do. It literally sparked something inside of me. And then at Chrysler, it was a lot of repair work, but also some fabrication for things they needed around the factory. And I learned from just a wide variety of guys there that had all kinds of different backgrounds. I couldn't ask for a better situation to learn in.
That's awesome, man. So moving on to the next question. I gotta ask, because I'm a big dog fan, what's the backstory behind Brown Dog Welding?
Brown Dog Welding, when we were trying to figure out the name for the weld shop, it was between Angry Beaver Welding and Brown Dog Welding. I just was trying to think of what would make cool logos, but we had Woodson, who is our brown dog, he's the face of the company. We adopted him. He was born the same day, and we found this out later. He was born the same day I set myself on fire welding that one day. So
it's perfect.
It was perfect. And he was our boy for a long time. He passed away in 2013, but he's always going to be the face of the brand. And we love dogs. We're dog people. We love supporting rescue shelters. And that's where we got him from. He was the run of the litter, grew up to be a healthy, strong, smart, and one of those once-in-a-generation type dogs.
Yeah.
Just, we loved him, and this was our way of kind of keeping him with us always. We have two other dogs now, April and Lucy. April's a 50-pound pit bull rescue, and Lucy's a little multi-poo designer dog, and they're best friends. They're the dynamic duo, and they're dumb as a box of rocks, but they're so sweet. They're cute girls.
That's awesome. So if you guys have ever checked out Josh's Instagram, he's got a number of different really cool sculptures. A lot of them are based off of automotive stuff.
Yeah.
What got you into doing that kind of sculpture, or was it just kind of a natural avenue to go into?
It was at Chrysler, again, as a millwright, working 7/12s, we had to be ready for when production went down. So I would spend a lot of my downtime just welding, and eventually you start putting things together. It's kind of the same old story. You start off with nuts and bolts, and it kind of goes on from there. I worked with a lot of guys who were really into motorcycles, so he pushed me into doing some motorcycle sculptures, and then that kind of just gradually went into hot rod stuff. And being in Detroit, it just makes sense. It's the Motor City. So that's kind of, I love the aesthetics of machines. I love the aesthetics. I've ridden a bike once. I rode a dirt bike once. But it's just like, and I was always afraid of being looked at as kind of an outsider, a poser, but all the guys that are into bikes appreciate my skill and what I do, and that I'm not trying to fake anything, and they've always been the community has always been very supportive of me. But yeah, it's just like the aesthetics of the American hot rod, an American motorcycle, or, I don't know, I just dig it.
Right. So like, I have to ask, because I've done some sculpture in the past for myself, but how long does it take you to make some of those? I guess they're not too large, but they're very intricate.
When I first started, it was always kind of a competition with myself to see how fast I could get it done. So I'd do a bike in like an hour and a half, 2 hours. And then I realized it was kind of a crutch for me not wanting to do the best I could do. It was just to see how fast I could get it done.
Right.
And it took me a long time, but eventually, as the art evolved, it took me longer naturally, but I was still rushing through everything. And then at one point, probably like 5 years in, I consciously was like, you know what, you gotta slow down. You can't stop, you can't look at the clock. I work quickly anyways. The first time I had my friend Matt recorded me making a motorcycle. When I look back on it, I was like, why'd you speed it up? It was like, I didn't, that's just how you move. You look like you're on speed. So I still tend to work fast, but long answer to a short question. A bike I can do in a day's work. I like to let everything set at least one night so I can think about it,
right.
And then go back and make changes. The cars are more like 2 to 3 days, long weekends.
Right.
And then everything else is just kind of fly somewhere in between. I don't have a huge attention span, so when I get something, I just like to do it. I like to get it done.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a big difference between doing something fast and doing something efficiently, right?
Yes.
So it takes a little while to learn those differences.
And you get into a groove. It's like anything else. We were talking yesterday about running machines and how there's a sound to it, and there's a rhythm to it, and not everyone has that, but working with metal, I see things a certain way, and once you get into building a thing, you get into that rhythm, and it's like any other kind of art. There's a muscle memory. There's your brain starts kind of melding with your artistic vision, and that's another thing I get asked a lot is like, what did you use? What part did you use for this? And to me, it's always about the final vision. It's not what you start with. I've built similar sculptures out of a wide range of parts, and to me it's always about making whatever you have fit your vision, fit your final vision. So
that's inspiring to me when I see some of the stuff you make that you post on Instagram.
Oh, thank you.
It makes me want to get back into welding too. So.
That's good to hear, and I've gotten that. It's been cool as social media has kind of blown up. It's been cool having people come up to me and say like, man, I was not sure I wanted to keep doing this, and then I saw what you did and wanted to give it a shot, and now some of these guys are just like insanely talented. They're rock stars on Instagram, and it's cool when they acknowledge like, yeah, I saw what you did and it made me want to jump into it. So I feel like kind of the old man of this new metal art.
Awesome. So we've talked about it, but you spent some time working overseas. What actually made you want to pursue that type of work?
Working at the proto shop for General Dynamics, the old timers always had stories about going overseas and working on vehicles. And we had a series of events in late 2016, early 17, where we had a couple of cars stolen, my shop was robbed. And I was just I had checked out. Like, I didn't want anything to do with art or writing or any of that. And I heard a rumor that there might be this trip to Iraq coming up, and I went to the committee man in our shop. It's a UAW shop, and was like, hey, if this happens, I want to be part of it. And sure enough, eventually they asked for 2 volunteers. I was the only one who ended up going. For 3 months, and it was an adventure. That's one of the things that I took out of, I had a series of arm surgeries from 2013 to 2015, 16. And one of the things I took out of it is, you're not guaranteed anything, life's short. I stopped saying no to opportunities and started saying yes. Like when somebody would have some wild trip, that I would always use to find an excuse not to do. I'd be like, all right, no, I'm gonna do this. And this was one of those things where it's like, you know what, how often would I get the chance to do this? I wanna try it. And it was stick welding, which I love. I don't get a ton of chance to do that anymore. I used to do it a lot more when I was at Chrysler. So it was all arc welding, battle damaged Abrams. So got to work on tanks for 3 months, repairing damage. And it was cool. It was a great experience. I met a lot of great guys. They really kind of took me in as family as soon as I got there, because it's a totally different atmosphere. You know, you're I don't want to say alone, but it's isolated from the rest of the world, you know. So, and you hear about things over there that you never hear about over here. Like the stuff they go through is just bonkers. It was, for 3 weeks in a row, it hit at least 120 degrees each day, which was a new thing for me. But it was cool. I enjoyed it. It was a great experience, and if I got the chance to do it again, I would probably take it.
That's great. I know we talked yesterday, and you said you had your tank license.
Yeah, I have a license through my day job. I have a license to drive a Stryker and an Abrams M1, A2, or any of the tracked vehicles. So every now and then, I don't get to drive them a lot, but I do get to drive them sometimes, and it's a pretty interesting feeling to be behind or in a vehicle that's turbine powered. You know, you hear it spool up and you're thinking, oh my God, there's a jet engine, I'm gonna take off, and it just kind of like lurches forward. But they're huge, but they're very nimble, and the power is just insane. They have almost infinite torque. And driving into work every day, smelling the jet fuel is that the J8 is always, I don't know, it's just cool.
Yeah, it's you know, it's every kind of boy's dream to be behind one of those, or at least ride on one at some point, right?
And a lot of guys take it for granted, or they've gotten used to it or whatever, and I dig it. So it goes back to the aesthetics of machinery, and well, it's kind of cool having my worlds collide. Like, I worked for Chrysler for years, and Chrysler Defense is what turned into where I'm at now, General Dynamics. In the early 80s, Chrysler actually helped develop the Abrams, the original Abrams, and it's been in service for almost 40 years now, which is bonkers, and we keep making improvements to it, and it keeps kicking ass.
Just gets better and better.
Yep.
That's great. So we know that you're from Detroit. What's so special about being from Detroit? And I gotta ask, what makes you stay there?
Detroit has a creative energy about it that you don't find anywhere else. It is way far behind developmentally wise than from a lot of other cities. I try to compare it to other Midwest cities, and it's just not there yet. I think that Detroiters, we have this like perverse sense of pride of all the things that the city has gone through. But to me, there's an energy about it. There's freedom in the fact that there aren't a lot of constraints on what you can do. There's a lot of it that's still kind of the Wild West, and the people there have been through so much that it creates, it's like, you know, they talk about, you know, iron sharpens iron, and the hottest fire creates the strongest steel. And that's kind of the deal, is that you've got all these people that are completely resilient. They've had to be creative to make it for so long. And to me, it's the mechanical mecca of the world. Like, Detroit's been a manufacturing giant since the 1800s. They were the stove manufacturing capital of the world. They were the cigar box manufacturing capital of the world. Then they got into you know, bicycles and anything you can think of, until eventually the car came, and very quickly they became the automotive capital of the world. And we've always had this insane amount of talent, from engineering to skilled tradespeople to artists and designers. And it's just been, it's an atmosphere that it's hard to understand unless you've been there and been through it.
Right.
Honestly, after the shop got robbed and the 2 cars were stolen, we thought we were gonna leave. And both of us, kind of separately without saying it, were in our minds, like me and my wife Darla, like, man, we don't really want to leave. We don't want to go. So we're sticking it out. I'm very outspoken about the bad things that are still a part of the city because I want to see them get better. You know, you see people say, well, if you don't like it, just leave it. And it's like, no, I love it, which is why I want to see it change.
And that's the easy way out, right?
Yeah, exactly. The easy thing is just, and that's what a lot of people do, is they either, oh, that's just Detroit, or they sweep it under the rug, or they leave. And I don't want to leave. I want to be part of, you know, just a little tiny part of watching the city, you know, grow and turn around.
Yeah. And speaking of that, can you tell us a little bit more about your campaign for Still Building America?
Yeah, so my wife Darla and I started this initiative. I started a blog on thefabricator.com a few years back called Still Building America, because I always heard this narrative that the younger generation of people don't want to work. We don't, you know, we're missing all these tradespeople. They're going into, and they're playing video games or whatever, and they're not. And in my experience, traveling to shows around the country and around the world even, but especially around the United States, that wasn't the case. We just kind of quantify it in different ways. There's a lot of people that are doing their own thing because they can build their own brand on social media or whatever. And you've got guys that have 2 or 3 side hustles. You've got guys that have, you know, they travel nonstop, working on the pipeline or whatever. Or guys, when I say guys, I'm just generalizing. It's, you know, both genders, and it's, I didn't see it, and I wanted to create something that displayed or showed off the younger people and their talents and their work ethic. So that's where it kind of started, and then we decided that we were going to build it into kind of an overarching brand, community initiative. We're going to start in Detroit, but to me, I want kids to know that skilled trades, blue collar work is an option. Mm-hmm. I don't want everyone to become a welder, a machinist, or a boilermaker, but I want them to know that, hey, that's out there, as opposed to waiting till they're 17 or 18 and being like, you suck at school, you know, go grab a wrench. Like, that shouldn't be the case. These are good jobs. They take a lot of skill and talent and hard work, and you should be proud of doing them. But if you don't know they exist, how do you know you want to get into it? So we're gonna start in Detroit and try to get middle school kids exposed to the trades. So we're gonna do that through a series of children's books. We're trying to put together small tool packages for kids, toolkits, because that's another thing in the city is families just don't have tools laying around, so they're never exposed to those kinds of things. And we want to start in Detroit and kind of expand outwards, because Detroit's school system is just terrible. And if we can do something to give kids kind of ownership over something, that gives you confidence, that gives you the desire to want to dig deeper. And so that's what that's all about. Is we're trying to find a bunch of different ways to get younger people exposed to blue collar work.
It's a great program from what you've told me about it, and it's inspiring that you guys are able to pull that together with everything else that you do, and try and help the middle school kids in Detroit like that.
Time management has become our next biggest obstacle, so we're working on that. But it's, you know, people have responded to it really well. We're hoping that we're able to give back to the community a little bit, and we're excited about it. It's in its infancy, so be on the lookout. Big things are going to come from it.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it moving forward. So we know that you're involved with a number of different publications and podcasts. Coming from a fabrication background, what kind of got you into writing articles, doing podcasts, and stuff like that?
I think naturally I'm not a very confident person. I never grew up having a lot of confidence in different things that I did. That was just sort of who I was. And welding and being good at welding kind of right off the bat gave me something to hang my hat on. And I think when you gain confidence in one arena, it kind of transcends into other areas. So I was more willing to put myself out there for, like when I started doing videos with Miller welders. Like, that's something I never thought I would have done, but right. I'm talking about something I'm passionate about. And that kind of led to writing Vicki Bell, who just retired from The Fabricator. She was my editor for a long time, and she had approached me about doing a blog for The Fabricator a few years ago. And I said, yeah, I'd love to do it. And it just kind of grew from there. I did a little bit of writing when I was younger, but nothing, it was more like off the wall creative, stream of consciousness stuff.
Yeah.
So doing this it's another creative outlet, especially with physically, health-wise, the things that I've gone through. Writing has become another way to maybe save my body a little bit. And again, that's opened a lot of doors. Now I've been doing, automotive themed writing pieces, road trip pieces. I write for DodgeGarage.com. I also started writing for the Welder magazine. I've been on shout out to my friend Jimmy McKnight. He has Art Junkies podcast, which is awesome, and I did that a few times. And at the same time, I felt like there was another opening for a blue collar type podcast. So we started a podcast called Playing with Fire, which is the name of my column in the Welder magazine. So Darla and I started doing that. I talked her into doing the podcast with me. I love the aesthetic of two different voices going back and forth. And she brings a totally different perspective to things. So we don't just talk about welding or just talk about fabrication. It's more like a lifestyle kind of thing, and we have fun with it.
That's great. I actually just had my first published article last week, so
awesome.
It's like a milestone for me.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's great. And then we're gonna pull into some Weiler questions. So
yep.
The big thing I want to know is I'm relatively new in my role, but how did you find out about Weiler, and what got you so involved with us?
Somebody had reached out to me on Facebook. I don't want to get the name wrong. Christina Matos.
Okay. Yeah.
But she had found me on Facebook years ago and was a fan of my work and kind of always put it out there that, hey, maybe we could do something with you at some point. But nothing, really ever came of it, and I didn't really think twice about a lot of the stuff, the consumables I was using, especially at work. It was just whatever they supplied me with, so it wasn't something I thought a lot about. And then at FabTech 5 years ago or so, I ran into my friend Kim, who I had met through Miller. She does marketing for Miller, or had done marketing for Miller, and she was also, it was the same crew that was doing marketing for Weiler. So I ran into her as I was looking for American manufacturers around FabTech, and she gave me a disc, and she's like, use this and let me know what you think of it. And it was just a Tiger X disc.
That's this guy right here?
Yes, that, Tiger X. Sorry, I was getting mixed with the Tiger Paw and the Tiger X. It was a Tiger X disc, flat disc, and it was phenomenal. Like, I've been used to using other brands, and it just was better. Bottom line, it was better. And eventually I got in with, I was asked to, because I'm not big into like going out and getting a ton of partnerships just to do it, or sponsors just to get free stuff. Like, I want to have a relationship. I want to use things that I believe in, built by people that I believe in. And so then when I was approached about maybe doing something with Weiler, I used that disc and was like, heck yeah. So it kind of just exploded from there. Once I was asked to do a small piece, and then Weiler asked me to come sit at the booth and kind of meet and greet people, sign autographs at one of the FabTechs, and the response was awesome. And since then, just getting to know everyone better, and now like seeing where everything's made, it's
comes full circle.
Yeah, exactly, and I couldn't ask for more.
That's great. What are your favorite products that we make? For
the Tiger X for sure. That's my bread and butter go-to. Like especially the 4060 grit to remove mill skill of some of the pieces. Like when I do my tattooed metal pieces, to get that first layer of crap off the steel, the depending on how thick it is, go with either the 40 or 60 grit. But the Tiger X is definitely my go-to. And then also I love the 1 mil thin cutting discs. Yeah, both there's the Inox,
yeah.
And then there's another one for stainless, one for other. They're both phenomenal. Like a lot of times with the thin blades, you get a lot of chatter, and these are just so well balanced, and they cut so quickly. I did a few, when I first got them, I did a few demonstrations of just like taking it and like powering through steel, and it was just phenomenal. They're so good.
It just took the abuse right
Yeah,
there.
yep.
And then, so we're going to kind of wrap up the interview with one last question. And I know whether you like it or not, you're an inspiration to a lot of different welders and artists around the country, probably around the world too. I know you have a lot of followers on Instagram and everything, and definitely one of my favorite metal artists.
I appreciate it.
So what words of wisdom do you have for new fabricators or the men and women looking to get into the industry?
Find out all you can about what exactly you want to go into, and don't do it unless you have a passion for it. It's not something where you can just kind of helicopter in and try it out and make a living. You can, but it's, to me, to make a real go of it, you have to be passionate about it. So give it a try. Take a community college class, take a class from somebody online that's giving lessons, or find somebody with a welder. Kind of follow them around, see if it's something you even want to get into, because you don't want to get into something and 5-10 years later realize that this isn't what you want to do, and it's not. There's not a lot of different things you can go from there. So that's why we're trying to get middle school kids exposed to it, so they can see, is this something that I want to do? And then when you do get into it, take that passion and turn it into a work ethic, turn it into a drive to make things happen, pick people's brains. And it's funny because I just wrote a piece about how you can't expect people to give them your time, but that doesn't mean you can't ask them. I'm just saying, don't expect it. Like that, especially fabricators, a lot of them are working on a very thin margin, and time is very important. So it's finding people at the right time that can give you a little bit of help, and you only get that by asking questions. And if somebody doesn't answer you or doesn't respond, don't get upset by it. Don't get discouraged from it. Just keep asking questions. And that's especially when I went through the apprenticeship, which I'm working with a bunch of old timers, and they loved that there was a younger grad that came in with energy. And there was one thing that always stuck in my head is we were on a conveyor project fixing it, and I was just an apprentice, and I keep asking all these questions. And one of the journeymen there looked at another journeyman who had just come out of the apprenticeship, and he looked at him and he's like, see, that's how you do it. He's like, what? He's like, he's asked more questions in the last 5 minutes than you did your entire apprenticeship. So that's how you learn, you don't make assumptions about things. Ask people, and ask people who you respect, and then take it and run with it, basically. Don't be afraid to branch out and do different things.
That's great. So, on behalf of myself and Weiler all together, we want to thank you.
Thank you, man.
And wife Darla, thank you for coming and having the tour, and talking with us and letting us show you around and see what we do on a daily basis.
Oh, the honor's mine. I had a blast. I love it. Yeah.
Thank you.